I follow a lot of developers on social media, and I've noticed a trend lately towards absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful screen recordings. It seems like 3-4 months ago, we would just get a line of text, possibly a screenshot, things that they were working on. And then all of a sudden, everyone had these Hollywood quality screen recordings that were perfectly animated. The mouse would move smoothly across the screen. It would zoom in and out with absolute precision. And there's beautiful animations for every single mouse click. Now, this is the type of screen recording that would typically need to be done in a very high-end animated type of scenario, actually involving video editors, not just a blanket screen recording. So the question that everyone is asking every time I see one of these posted is, hey, that's sweet. How is this being done? What software are you using? Today, I'm going to answer that and also demo Screen Studio for you. But I do want to be clear that this software is in active development, meaning that by the time I post this video, I fully anticipate that there's new features released that I just haven't covered in the video. Here is their founder, Adam's Twitter page, where he actually even earlier today, he was posting about new features he was developing. I went and opened up Screen Studio, and sure enough, there was an update available for me. So check out his Twitter if you want to see what is coming up next in the software. It is very, very actively developed. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how the software works. We're going to do a screen recording and then we're going to edit it inside of a Screen Studio. But I want to be totally clear, I am not using Screen Studio to produce this video. I'm actually using 2 other pieces of software. I've got my face cam being recorded right here through something called Swift Capture, no relation. And then I've also got my screen being recorded inside of CleanShot X. Here is the user interface for Screen Studio when you're actually capturing footage. So the first 3 options here are related to choosing what you want to record. We can do the entire display, and I really like this because it's highlighting which monitor is recording. I've got multiple monitors connected, and you can see that right now it's going to record this one right here, which is my LG Ultrafine. I can also choose a particular window. Now I've got Safari open right here. As I hover over the Safari window, I'm given the option to record here. I can also resize this window, and it's got some different presets for me. So by default, it's already set to 1920 by 1080, but if I wanted to do a larger recording, I could do that, or I could even do something like 9 by 16 so that I could record and upload for a YouTube short. These are just nice fit and finish touches that I don't see in a lot of screen recording applications. Next up, of course, you have free recording. You can choose an area down here and then just drag and resize as you find appropriate. Or of course, you can just type in the dimensions right here. So if I wanted to do 1920 by 1080, I can do that. And then of course, I can reposition this on the screen. The next options are for setting your audio and video inputs. Right now I'm using my USB audio interface. I can choose any of the inputs that I currently have connected. And similarly, it works with multiple cameras. So right now I'm actually recording this through my iPhone, which is connected via continuity camera. That works seamlessly inside of Screen Studio, no additional setup needed, but I could also record any of the other cameras that I have available to me on my Mac. The last option over here is the gear icon, and this is maybe some more advanced features. You probably don't ever have to click on this. The first one is enhanced microphone audio. I wish there was more information about what exactly this was. I can't find anything about it online, but you can try it, turn it on, turn it off, see if you like the sound of it on your voice. Next up, we can set a countdown duration. I have mine set to 3 seconds. So when I hit record, I have 3 seconds to get ready before the recording actually begins. Of course, you can always trim things up after you're done, but some people like to have a little bit of a pre-roll. And then we can also set a global start-stop control so you can have a keyboard shortcut to actually begin the recording. You don't have to go into any of this. You can just press a button and you can get going with your recording. Under the experimental features, these are features that have just been added like very recently within the last week. The first one is to enable iOS screen recording, so you can actually connect your phone via a lightning connector to your Mac, and then it'll record. Really cool. We're probably not going to get into that in this video. If you want to see a dedicated, maybe shorter form video on that, I'd be happy to look into it. We can also do hiding the desktops during recording. I think that's kind of a default. I almost think that should just be turned on by default. The last option is to use Screen Capture Kit, which is set to automatic by default. Just leave it there. This is something that Apple released in 2022 at their WWDC. It's just a framework to make high performance screen recordings inside of Mac apps. All right, so let's go ahead and get recording here. I'm going to choose Window, Safari, hit start recording. You can see my countdown down here. And now I am actually recording the screen. And if I wanted to restart, I could press this button right here. I love that. CleanShot X also has that, and I use that feature all the time because I like to get the beginning of the video right. Just feels better to start that way. So nice to see that. And if I just decide I'm done recording, I can actually hit the trash button here. That feels a little bit risky to me because I might accidentally, in a hasty moment, click the wrong button, but I do like having this here. Okay, so let's begin. I'm just gonna do a little demo here by performing a Google search. So this is gonna have some mouse movement to it. It's gonna have a click. It's gonna have some typing. You can see what everything looks like, basically raw because I'm recording through CleanShot, and then I'll show you the more beautiful version inside of Screen Studio. Okay, so I'm gonna move my mouse and I'm gonna move it kind of just like a normal person, right? So it's not a clean movement over there, but we'll see the A/B inside of Screen Studio. Okay, so I'm gonna move my mouse and I'm gonna move it kind of just like a normal person, right? So it's not a clean movement over there, but we'll see the A/B inside of Screen Studio. Okay, so I've clicked inside of the search box and you can see it popped open some trending searches. Now in Screen Studio, every click is going to trigger an automatic zoom. So I know that it's going to be zoomed in if I look at the Screen Studio version right now. So Dave in post-production right now, and you can see that the zoom did take place like I expected, but the zoom was short. It ended up zooming back out very quickly. So if I wanted this to last the entire time that I was typing, I would simply hold it out to right here, and then I can go back and play it. Now I'm going to query Google. I'm going to ask, when is Black Friday 2023? Now Google's already completed this for me, but I'm still going to go ahead and perform the search. And there we go. We've got our search results. So what I expect to happen automatically for me without any work at all is it will zoom back out after I press enter and it will display the Google search results. Okay, so I'm gonna move my mouse and I'm gonna move it kind of just like a normal person, right? So it's not a clean movement over there, but we'll see the A/B inside of Screen Studio. Now I'm going to query Google. I'm going to ask, when is Black Friday 2023? Now Google's already completed this for me, but I'm still going to go ahead and perform the search. And there we go. We've got our search results. So I'm going to hit stop on my little recorder down here. And will now pop open to the editor inside of Screen Studio. Okay, so I want to cover this entire application in a thorough, logical manner without taking a ton of time. So what I'm going to do is just focus on the sidebar to begin with, because there's a lot of options over here. You can see these icons, which are not super descriptive, but as I hover over them, it actually puts up a label. So not a very Mac-like user interface. We're kind of reinventing the wheel here in terms of there are standards for how Mac applications are kind of supposed to work. And this doesn't necessarily follow all of them, which is, I think, why it might have a little bit of growing pains in terms of adoption. But the features that it does provide are done in a really nice and elegant manner. So let's go through this. First up is background and screen. So you can see that my screen right here actually has a nice wallpaper to it, although my original recording did not have that wallpaper. I can actually change this after the fact. So I can toggle through any of the built-in wallpapers. Some of these are from the latest betas of macOS. So that's really cool to see them just really jumping on those features early on. I can also do a background blur. So let's find something with some more distinct lines. Here you can see these are very sharp lines. If I add some background blur, it makes it a little bit more washy. That looks pretty nice. I can also play with the padding here. So maybe I don't want quite so much wallpaper. I can make the screen actually larger by just moving this slider up and down. And then I can also round the corners. So I'm rounding the corners of Safari here. I'm actually making Safari look more and more rounded. I don't know that I would necessarily do this. I'm gonna reset it for now, but I love that it's there. It's really cool. If you had a little bits of the application in the background you didn't wanna show, very nice way to remove that. And similar to how in web design we have margin and padding, inset is kind of like padding is on web development, if you know what that means. So I can move this in a little bit and you can see that my actual screen recording now has another layer of padding around it. And I can change the color of that if I wanted to make it, let's say, oh, I don't know, we'll change it to be, how about red? All right, there we go. Okay, so I've removed the inset, but you can see there's lots of flexibility here and we're not even done with the background section. By default, we've got a nice little shadow being cast on the wallpaper. I can remove that if I'd like. Now it's much more kind of flat looking, or I can really crank it up if I want the shadow to be more intense. Notice that the shadow is also applying to my video camera right here. We'll reset that back to the default. And there are some advanced settings here. If you really want to dial in the shadows exactly as you like them, you can definitely do that as well. Okay, so maybe you're not a big fan of the Mac wallpaper look. No problem. You can go over to the gradient section here, set up your own gradient. You still have all of the options in terms of padding, rounded corners, inset, shadows. That's all still, independent of your background. We can also choose a flat color if you like that look, and you can even upload your own image if you want to do something that's like really on brand. All right, let's move over to the cursor section right here. This is where we can actually hide the cursor completely if you want. You want to just focus on the product. It'll still zoom around and show you different features of the product, but you can actually turn that off completely. We'll obviously look at zooms a little bit later on. I'm going to leave the cursor on for our sake, and then I can go ahead and resize it. So let's find a spot in the screen recording here where we can see the cursor. So there it is. I can make that bigger if I'd like, and I can make it smaller. There's more like real size. I'll go ahead and reset this, which is 1.5x. And if you're recording, say, an iPad app or an iPhone app, you can change it to the touch interface here, which is basically the mouse interface that you get when you're using a mouse on an iPad. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the macOS version. There's a few more advanced mouse features here. For example, when you click inside of a text field on macOS, it typically goes to this kind of eye-looking cursor. But you can turn that off inside of Screen Studio by simply toggling this switch on, and then you get the pointer. It'll never deviate from being a pointer. The other two features are to rotate the cursor a little bit while it's moving, as well as stopping the cursor at the end of the video. So typically, if you're done recording and then you move your mouse over to the stop button, you'll kind of see it go off screen. If you want to just have it freeze in place, you can do that. Okay, so that's everything for the cursor section. Next up, let's go to the camera section. First of all, I can toggle off my camera. Let's say I do an entire recording and I realize my hair is just horrible. I want to turn off the camera. There we go. It's gone. I can also place it at different points on the screen. Now, I would actually prefer the ability to precisely place it where I want, because sometimes there's a bit of a user interface where I want to maybe just tuck the video in there. So the fact that I can't do that is a little bit of a downer, but it's not a deal breaker completely. I can also turn on the mirror camera option, which is simply going to flip me around so it looks like I'm looking at the right direction. Or maybe I just like how it looks, but just be aware, obviously any text or anything you have in the background will be backwards and it'll be very obvious to the user that it is mirrored. Next, we can change the roundness. Now it does have this kind of trademark squared rounded corner look. I can turn this all the way up and it will get more circular. I kind of prefer that personally. I can also turn it all the way down and it never goes to quite square, which I would like it to do that. I'd like to be able to go to kind of more of the standard typical shapes. I can also change the size here. I can make it bigger or smaller if I like. All right, next up, we have the ability to change the video's size during a zoom. This is on by default, and we can actually see this happening here as I play back the zoom here. You can see that the video resizes to get smaller. That's a really nice feature, and I can actually change how impactful that is. So by default, it's gonna get down to 70%, but if I really want that to get really small, I could do that. And as we watch the zoom, it's going to make the video very, very small in the corner. Next up, let's talk about captions, because Screen Studio has the ability to automatically generate captions using Whisper AI. At least I believe that's what they're using, given the language that they're using here. Base, small, and medium. These are the different Whisper AI models. I can hit the version that I want. It will actually download that model if you don't already have it on your computer, and then generate a transcript, which you can overlay on your video, burning it right into the video. It doesn't have to be a separate file that people turn on captions. So this is really great for things like social media posts where you want to have the text burnt right on the screen. Well, Screen Studio can do that for you. Let's go ahead and check this out. I'm just going to do the small size here to make it go a little bit faster, and we'll generate the text. While this is generating, I want to mention that we can actually do a prompt here to help make the transcript more accurate. So if there's technical terms, you're doing software, it might be spelled funny, you can go ahead and put that in preemptively to get the AI to have a better chance of transcribing your words a little bit more accurately. Note that I did not do that here, so we might see some mistakes on some software terms. You can see that it's highlighting each word as I say them on the screen. Absolutely beautiful, super cool that this is just a single click away. The transcript is so far absolutely perfect. If you decide after the fact that you don't want the transcript, simply click the button here and then it's gone, hidden out of sight. Now, I don't think I remembered to use any keyboard shortcuts when I was recording, but I can simply turn this on and it will overlay the keyboard shortcuts right on the screen. So that's really handy if you're doing some kind of software tutorial and you want it to show up. Simply turn this on and you'll be able to, indicate to your users what keys you're pressing. I've been using CleanShot X for a little over a year at this point, and it's got this feature built in as well. I really like it. All right, finally, under animations, we've got a few settings here just related to the general animations. We can also tweak the zooms on a very specific basis. We'll look at that in a second here. But essentially, we've got motion blur. So this is very interesting. So it's creating some motion blur to make things a little bit more cinematic. That's why everything looks so beautiful inside of Screen Studio. As the mouse is moving, as the zooms are coming in and out of the screen, everything looks a little better than it actually does on your computer because it's doing that motion blur. It's blurring the background so the focus item stays perfectly crisp. Everything looks so nice with motion blur. They have this absolutely cranked up. By default, you can turn that down if you like. Just like we've seen for a lot of the settings here, we can get more granular here. There is an advanced motion blur settings toggle, which we can actually go ahead and change the motion blur on a case-by-case basis. So for cursor movement, for screen zooms, and for screen moving, that'd be from moving side to side. I mentioned that the mouse movements are also smoothed out. This is a lot like you might do in something like Pixelmator Pro or Photoshop or something like that, where you can actually turn on smoothing as you're drawing on the screen. You can, of course, change the speed of the mouse animations as well as the zoom animations right here from slow to rapid, and then further customize that with the settings they call tension, friction, and mass. And those are exactly the same for the zoom settings as well. All right, so those are all the features. We're getting pretty in depth here. I'm gonna show you a little bit about how the editor works, but it's not really all that deep. So if you're used to something like Final Cut where you can really just, layer and stack things as heavy as you want, you'll be slightly disappointed by Screen Studio. It's really hard to build a full nonlinear editor. So that's why I'd love some integration. But enough said, let's get into how this actually works here. So let's say at the beginning of my screen recording, I wanted to cut out right here. I could simply go to the split clip, click right here, and now I've got two separate clips. I can close out of this menu, right click, and then remove the clip, and everything kind of snaps into place. So you can see that's a little bit tedious. We do have the option to use S to split the clips. So I can turn that on with an S, cut right there, right click, remove. Not super slow, but not maybe as fast as you might be used to. It's still three separate motions. So that's basically how the editing works here. Now with zooms, I can simply click anywhere that I want. I'm gonna click right here and I can put in a zoom. So right now it's set to be a 2x zoom, and we can see what that looks like as I play it back. So it just zooms right in on the mouse as the focal point. Now, if I wanted to change the mouse as the focal point, I simply click on it, and now over in the sidebar, I've got some zoom settings. So I'm in auto zoom mode. I can change it to manual mode, and I can actually choose the exact spot on the screen that I want to zoom in. Really nice user interface for this. I love it. It's actually better than Final Cut. I can toggle the zoom amount right here. This is absolutely great as well. And then I can change the glide, which is basically how much the camera is moving while it's zoomed in. The option to remove the zoom is right here. And one thing that they added recently, in fact, I think it was today, is the ability to remove zooms in mass. Now I mentioned this doesn't function like a normal macOS application, meaning there's no rubber band select. I can't simply just click and select a bunch of stuff in the timeline here. That really just breaks my brain. I'm so used to doing that. But what you can do here is right click on the zoom. I can remove it from right here. I can duplicate it if I have lots of similar shots, or I can disable all or even remove all zooms. This was not a feature until today, and it's one of the things that's really kept me from being super excited about this software, because every single click you create is going to add a zoom. If you want to export this video and use it in something like Final Cut, you can do that, but you'd have to sit there and delete every single zoom that you made. And that's just like an extra, I don't know, if you're doing an hour-long screen recording, that could take an extra 10 minutes of just sitting there clicking and removing zooms. So I'm pumped to see this feature. In fact, that's all of the editing features that there are at this point. It's a lot easier to go through the editor than it was all of the options on the sidebar, which you can, by the way, this is another new feature. We can hide the sidebar, which is really nice. But at this point, you're probably done editing your project and you want to get it out into the world. Here are the options that you have. We can export it right up here, and we can choose between Studio, Social Media, Web, and Web Low Quality. So Studio is going to be if you want to edit inside of a non-linear editor like Final Cut or one of the Adobe products or something like that, you can easily export very high quality right there. It does give you an estimated output time. Here it's 6 minutes. And keep in mind, this video was, I think, maybe around 2 minutes of recording. So it is considerably longer to export than it is to record. Keep that in mind if you're recording 1 hour tutorials. I've had many 3-hour exports working. So it really is kind of, you have to make the decision, all right, I'm committing to use this software. The next tier down is social media, which is going to be slightly more compressed than the studio quality, but it'll be ready for uploading right away. Then we can also do web and low quality, which I just never really touched those. So I would probably stick with the first two options. Most of the platforms that you're uploading video to are going to recompress it anyway. So I think feeding them the highest quality that your bandwidth allows is probably the best path. Notice that as I click through the different levels here, it's not changing the export time. It's always 6 minutes. So the compression level is not impacting that. The only thing that will change the export time is actually lowering the output size. And I don't recommend doing that. Of note here, it is going to export at 60 frames per second by default. This is good. This is going to look the most lifelike and smoothest on screens. Higher frame rates are great. Gamers have known that for a long time. We can choose a different frame rate if you need to. And we can also export as a GIF if you want to do that. So there's that option for you. One other really peculiar option is the ability to export it to the clipboard. So if I click this, it's going to start exporting right away. I'm going to cancel this because I don't actually want it on my clipboard, but just a really weird feature for them to build in. Let's export to files, shall we? Just a little bit more long-term safety there. All right, there is Screen Studio. I actually shot this video several weeks back and I had so many complaints about it, and I just waited a few weeks and they all went away. So that's really saying something for the future of this product. Let's go ahead and take a look at the pricing before we close out the video. So right now it is $89 to use on one device. If you want to use it on 3 devices, it's $189. And if you want to work with Teams, they've got, one of that contact us type of options. So I think for $89, really good option here. You can use it forever, hypothetically, although it's not a lifetime deal because you get 1 year of updates. So I think you'll just stop getting new features added in after that 1 year. So that's going to do it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial walking you through all the features of Screen Studio. If you're new around here, make sure you click that subscribe button. Leave me any comments or questions down below. I love geeking out over video stuff, screen recordings. I've tried all of the softwares, so definitely ask me any questions you have. I'll try to get back to absolutely everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.